Welcome back to 3 Point Firefighter. Today, my guest is the Assistant Chief of Hanover Fire EMS, Eddie Buchanan. Welcome to my podcast, sir.
Hey, man, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad to have you on here. I'm sure everybody here that's listening knows who you are and has crossed your path, whether it's on YouTube videos or a technical committee or a class you've done. You've done all kinds of things. Just to touch on some of the highlights. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You started in the fire service when you were early 80s.
Yeah, 82.
82.
Kid.
How old were you at 82?
16.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. You've, like I mentioned, you're the Assistant Chief of Hanover. You also got the Instructor of the Year Award in 2015 from at FDIC. You've taught a lot of classes. You're on the Technical Committee for 1700, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just
all the 14s.
Oh, you were on all the 14s as well?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so is Chris Hubbard just trying to copy you by being on some of these committees?
He's actually the guy that keeps me out of trouble.
It is?
Both in the NFPA and at work.
So let me ask you this.
I work with him directly.
You guys work at the same department. I take it you're from the same area.
More or less.
Okay. Here's my theory. Nobody has a Southern drawl accent like Chris Hubbard. I think he's making it up. And you do not have that accent.
He's got that Western Virginia thing. He was over the hill a little bit. Over there on the western side of the state. I know at least he went to college over there.
Whenever we teach together for the society, I always tell people he's got the, the mint julep on the veranda kind of accent. And I've got more of the Eastern Kentucky, do you want to buy some meth accent? So
right.
We're a good balance. I think we're a pretty good balance.
That's awesome.
So let me ask you this.
He's a good dude, man. He really does keep me out of trouble like every day.
Chris is a fantastic dude. I love teaching with him. And he's one of those instructors that's very giving. He lets you explore a few things and try some different things. He had so much to do with the 1403 class for the society, which is kind of nerve-wracking when I got to teach with him, because I'm like, here's the guy that pretty much wrote it. And he's always like, oh, no, try this or try that, whatever you want, man. You just do you. He could not be more chill about it. I really enjoy working with Chris. He's a great guy.
Great guy.
But he does not say good things about you. So when you go to work tomorrow,
I'm sure.
I know you're his boss. You can make him clean your truck or something. Send me a video. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So I like to start out with asking my guests, tell me about your department and where you fit in with it.
Okay. So my department is Hanover Fire EMS. We are a large combination system, right? So we have, I don't know, I think we're like 230 career people and about another couple hundred volunteers that are spread out over 16 stations and 500 square miles. So
500 square miles.
Yeah. We're big in all the ways. We have a lot of people to keep track of, but they're spread way out too. So it can be very urban in some ways, and it can be very rural in some ways. So we have all the things, right? We have municipal water, and we've got a water shuttle, and everything in between of all that stuff. So it's a fun place to work, really, because we literally get to see lots of different stuff. So it's pretty cool. So I'm an assistant chief. I'm currently responsible for all the business, side of the house, the budget and the logistics and all that stuff.
The sexy stuff.
Yeah, we and Chris were just talking today. Our fleet is something I forget. I want to say 140 something vehicles that the fleet by itself is a monster. Just trying to keep all that running. And but yeah, we have a really cool executive team. We have our fire chiefs, Jethro Pyland. He's a fairly young fire chief as chiefs go. And he came up through the ranks with all of us. In fact, our whole most everybody, in our senior staff from battalion up, grew up there, and they were probably volunteers at some point. And then, as the department switched over to the career, got hired somewhere along the way, and have made their way up the ranks again. So we all came with the furniture, so to speak. I mean, we've been there for a long time, and we work really well together. And we work really well with the Metro. I'm very proud of the Richmond Metro area where we're from, part of the Richmond, Virginia area. And we do some phenomenal stuff at a regional level too. We can just cross your, boundary lines and jurisdictions, flip a radio channel. We're good to operate. So it's really love my fire department and really love our region. So it's really cool.
That's cool. Now you started, like we said, in 82. So, and you made it all the way up on the volunteer side to chief.
Yep.
Is that right? And then
Mhm.
you got over to the paid side. What actually translated over? Were you a chief on the paid side, or did you have to start all over
Yeah.
at the bottom?
Started as they actually hired me as an instructor. We had no paid firefighters, so to speak. They had fire administration. They had an investigator and like a paid logistics guy. They had a couple of people, maybe 6 people working in fire administration or something. And as we were one of the first, as they started to grow, they put in paid training staff, right? And they not long before that, they had just instituted a mandatory training standard where you actually had to have training. There was, before that, you could get away without it. It was pretty wild back in the 80s like that. So we got hired as instructors, myself and a guy named Greg Martin. We came in 2 weeks apart, and right after that they reclassed everybody, and I was all of a sudden a lieutenant. Just boom, okay. It's kind of, my whole career has been that way. I'm just sitting there and stuff happens, and right place, right time, I guess. And our first mission was to train. At the time was 500 volunteers. Of that 500, I distinctly remember 23% of them had firefighter 1.
Oh,
So we were looking at a tall task, man. There's 2 of us. Yeah, they've adopted this mandatory training standard that everybody has to go through, and only 23% of the people meet it. So we're like, man, how in the heck are we the 2 of us gonna train? This is impossible. And so we, eat the elephant one bite at a time, and we started on it. And in the process of that, came up with what we call an academy format. That we, at the career recruit schools, were kind of used to an academy format, but it never really been done in a volunteer setting that I was aware of, at least at the time. So we just became a machine, and we were running sometimes multiple academies at once. He'd take one, I'd take the other. And we eventually were able to create some volunteer training officers. So we had guys that were really good at what they did, good instructors, and they started to step up and fill what would be staff roles, in the academy, and just punched it out. And over the years, I want to say it took us 10 years to complete that whole, before we said, okay, that process is complete. And we were in more of a maintenance mode at that point. But that's one way to learn your chops, right? When you got that.
Well, how hard was that
put through
with volunteers, though? Because I know their schedules are so unique. How hard was it to get them through that? That had to be a logistical nightmare.
It was. We talked a lot, to different people about what did they prefer. Plus, I should also mention, we had a fairly high training standard. We didn't necessarily use the minimum standard of the state as our baseline. We wanted to go above that. We wanted to create a firefighter that worked in our jurisdiction, not necessarily based on what 1001 said. Right. We were far ahead of that. And so that, not only to get them to show up, but to go be above and beyond the minimum was also a challenge, But after talking to folks a lot, we offered schedules that were spread out over 8 months, a year. The tightest we could compress it was really into 6 months to get firefighter 1 and 2, hazmat ops, and all that stuff. And everybody decided they'd like to just kind of get it over with. So we went for 2 nights a week and every other weekend, and could compress it into a 6-month period. And we would just tell them it's going to suck, and just, it's all you're going to do for 6 months, but then it's done, and your basic stuff is complete, and you can go and do other things. And there for a while, we even had a SAFER grant where we could, they got a reimbursement for, I think it was like $3,000 by the time they put in all those hours.
Oh, wow.
So, take your family on vacation and thank you for training.
So was there a lot of retention problems with that? Did some people just couldn't make it because of the schedule?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that wow. And the standard. I think we kind of came to be known as the tough program. We ran it as if it was, you would have thought it was a career program if you looked at it. I mean, we had all the disciplinary stuff in place, all the, drill and ceremony and all the things were part of that program. So some people, that wasn't for everybody. And some people decided to go elsewhere, which was fine. I had been through that as a volunteer chief before, when I had some, I had a lot of people, but nobody really doing any work. And I remember distinctly talking with my assistant chief then at the time, and we said, we really, if we raise the bar, some people will quit, but they'll be the people that quit will be the ones that probably should anyway.
Right.
And then when we recruit new people in, we'll get a better recruit because they'll want to be a part of something that's an elite team, not the Titanic deck crew, So that worked. And I remember that lesson going forward, that if you're going to be part of something, you want to be part of something good.
Right.
Particularly if I'm going to volunteer my time to do something like that.
Probably a lot more pride coming out the other end too, knowing that not only did you meet the standard, you exceeded it.
What was interesting, the fitness aspect of that, we instituted mandatory fitness as part of our academy program back then. And we created an obstacle course that they had to run on a daily basis. And that was some eye-opening stuff, man. There were people that probably shouldn't, maybe this ain't the hobby that you want to be involved with because you can get hurt and you hurt somebody else. And I distinctly remember a guy corking out on the field, he just rolls over, kind of laid out like a, turtle. And we go to check on him. He opens his coat and, we're getting him unbuttoned because he's overheated and all that. And he goes, I'll be all right, sir. Just let me pop this nitro. I'll be good in just a second. I was like, all righty, he's out of here, So it's amazing. Yeah. I was like, okay. Wow. So we learned a lot over the years though, man. That was a great incubator, if you will, not only for training volunteers, but for learning the leadership stuff that goes with it, the documenting performance and communicating expectations, giving feedback, coaching. With that volume of stuff to process, it really was a blessing. Heck of a challenge at the time, but it really was a blessing in the long run.
When did you realize that you had a passion for teaching in the fire service?
I think it's a couple of different instructors that I saw over the years when I was younger that really made an impact. That I was like, man, I want to be like that guy. Like they just knew their stuff. They were squared away. They were great instructors. They were tough, but they were, in a coaching sort of way. Mm-hmm. One guy I think of that I remember, I took a lot of HTR, we call it HTR, the technical rescue stuff and all mm-hmm. that. We were tech rescue buffs back in, the early days, right? So we took all the things. And there was an instructor named Mike Brown, was with the Virginia Beach Fire Department. I was always amazed at that dude. He was a mountain of a guy anyway. He was a great big dude. And he was one of the go-to guys on the FEMA task forces when they were just really kind of becoming a thing, and helped build a lot of the FEMA response force and all that. And he would teach us, shoring or trench rescue, or we used to tease him at FDIC he had his moving heavy objects for no apparent reason class. They would move the big block around the parking lot and stuff. But he made a big impression on me, seeing guys like that really, just were what you would imagine an instructor to be, and to be able to train with them. Sorry, I guess
that's all right.
And those are the guys that really kind of got me. I want to be like that dude. And those guys taught. And, so you go get your instructor and you get your first trainer under your belt. And I remember the first class I taught, I was awful. I was terrible.
There goes my dog. I guess I heard your dog.
Probably. But I was teaching, I'll never forget, I was teaching a pump operations class, and I was not as squared away as I probably should have been. And I couldn't, I remember it was a volute. I didn't understand exactly what that was. It's kind of an abstract concept, in the anatomy of a pump. And I kind of got to that part and kind of danced past that a little bit. Somebody asked a question about it. I really couldn't answer it. And who is now my ex-wife now, but she was also a firefighter. Mm-hmm. And she, on the ride home, I'll never forget that honest feedback she got. She goes, "Don't you ever get in front of a classroom like that if you don't have your crap together." And I was like,
"Yes, dear."
Point taken. Yes, ma'am. But that was a great lesson the hard way. Thankfully, and it was just in front of a small group. It wasn't anything, overly embarrassing. But I made a point from that day on, which was the first class. I thought, I will never step in front of a classroom not prepared. I want to know what they know. I want to know what there is that anything. I'm gonna pull all the information down and know it inside out before you get up there. And it's the only way you can really get up there and do the job that they deserve, as
absolutely.
a student.
Absolutely. I've had the same issues where I like to know everything that I'm going to teach, but there's been a few times that I'll have a subject that I think, well, I got this down pretty pat, so I won't do the research like I should. And as soon as I get in front of somebody, so the way I have to do it, I'm sure it's very similar where you're at. I got to teach 2 classes a day, 3 days of to hit all crews. So I got to teach the class 6 times basically to hit everybody in the department. So there's been quite a few times I'm humbled in that first class, quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'll say something, and one guy's go, well, this, or this. I'm like, oh. So then I've got a choice to make for the rest of the classes. I've obviously got to bring the information up, but do I just pretend like I knew it already, or do I got to give credit? So I always try to give credit like, well, Aaron told me in the first class that, this, and this. So I think being an instructor is a very humbling experience to begin with. And I've had a few classes that I thought went really well, but there's probably as many that I didn't get ready as good as I should have. But you got to keep forging ahead.
There's always that guy too. So it's a balance, right? You always want to be prepared, but at the same time, you can't don't beat yourself up too hard, because there's always going to be that guy. Like I've learned that at FDIC. You teach at FDIC, you could go out there and knock the ball over the fence, and it's fantastic. And every review you read is, oh my gosh, the second coming is great. And then there's that one guy. Yeah. There's always that one guy. I always wonder if it's the same guy, but there's always going to be that one. And that's something that a lot of the instructors talk about in the room is, when you go to the instructor ready room in there, and it's like, yeah, I got that guy too. And we'll all be holding that evaluation,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you want to be ready to do your best, but don't, there's always going to be somebody.
Sure. And there's the other side of it too, where you can't convince somebody. Of course, we're leading into something by accident about science and how science affects the fire service. But one of the first classes I ever taught was a driver operator class, and we're getting to drafting. And one of the guys in the class said, well, you can draft from like 1 3/4 soft suction hose. I'm like, no, I don't think. He goes, oh yeah. If you just turn it real slow, you turn the just a little bit, you can pull the draft off 1 3/4 soft suction hose. I'm like, I think science is going to fight you on this one, but he wouldn't let it go. And finally I had to say, I tell you what, let's move on, and then we'll maybe do an experiment later with this. But so this leads me right into, of course, you got, I'm very jealous. You got the 2015 Instructor of the Year Award, the George T. Post Award. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that come to be, and how important was that to you?
Well, it was really a humbling honor. I mean, I don't know that why in the world anybody thought I would deserve such a thing. There's so many people involved with the research and the fire dynamics and all that stuff. I mean, I guess I was the guy on the camera or whatever, but it meant a lot to me. That place still, it still sits, that award sits in that place I honor in my office. But I never forget Bobby calling me on the phone to go, hey man, I got something to tell you. I was sitting on an airplane. They're about to shut the door, and I saw it was Bobby, and I'm like, well, let me see what he's doing.
Bobby Halton.
And
yeah.
And he gave me the news, and I was like, and of course they're shutting the door, and I'm like, okay, I got to go back. I was like, just sitting there going, nobody I could tell, right? It's pretty bizarre. Flight attendant, can I have a drink? Because it was just me sitting on the plane. But that was a pretty humbling thing. But you got to. And if anybody probably deserves that award, it's my fire department. That's who really, I think, specifically, if you want to talk about that whole Slice RS thing, and whether you love it or hate it or whatever, the men and women of my fire department are the ones that brought that thing to life. We can,
yes, absolutely,
we can cook something up on the whiteboard, and run it conceptually, but they have to go out in the field and make it work. So I always brag about them all the time, because they're so adaptive to change and new concepts. They don't really know it. It's like they don't appreciate how good they are at it, because they just do what they do. They don't know what everybody else is like. But they're really phenomenal when it comes to considering the science, figuring out what to do about the science, and then turning it into some sort of tactical plan. They're exceptional at that, and I'm always in awe to just watch them work. They're really good at what they do. We have a technical services committee. They have 2 work groups. They have one for EMS and one for fire, where they meet on a regular basis with our training battalion chief. He kind of chairs that, and they just kick around stuff. What's the latest research? What's the what are we doing that we could do better? Where do we have an opportunity to try something new or prove or disprove some concept? And they work on that all the time. And then they have guys that they kind of dole out different responsibilities to, like, we've guys that are researching high pressure fire attack, got guys who are researching, whatever the other thing is. And I've got another guy who researches PPE, the SCBA. I got SBA expert. We have these guys, thermal imaging. They all kind of take on their thing they're passionate about. And that gives them a forum to bring it to the executive level, so that we find something that sticks, we can implement it. So it's really pretty cool. It's more of a bottom up type of process for that. And I could be more proud of them. They deserve the award. That's who name should be on it.
But you're talking about a group of firefighters that accept the change and make the change, because that's not something I've seen a lot in my career. Usually we're just hard headed. What is it? Broad City said, two things firefighters hate is change and the way things are. Yeah. So my experience has been different. It's like, dragging a heavy car on its side down the street, trying to say flow path. Consider the flow path.
They're not that flexible because they wanted to be. They were conditioned through some pretty aggressive leadership stuff. Always tell our folks about our fire department, we've always had the right chief at the right time. Mm-hmm. We've had 4, and in recent history anyway, and they've always been the right person and the right type of person. Mm-hmm. So, our first chief when I got in was a big relationship builder. I mean, he always had the ace in his pocket that he was ultimately the ultimate authority, but he never used that in a volunteer-based system like it was. He could have, but he didn't. And he always would build relationships. And then the next chief came along was Chief Crosby. Was pretty. He was an interesting cat, man. I love that guy. He's crazy. He would try new stuff. He was the guy that let me run with the fire research stuff, the fire dynamics thing, and let us go try new things. And he would push our people. It's kind of like teaching them how to do the splits, trying to get a big old dude to do the splits. It ain't gonna be pretty, man. It's not gonna be pleasant. But with constant, effort, you will eventually get there. And that's kind of how that happened. He just challenged us in ways that made us very uncomfortable sometimes, but made us a whole lot better in the process, Right. And the chief now, Chief Holland, is kind of the polish on that. He's helping us get to a place of more organizational maturity, where we have processes and we can kind of grow up and be a real fire department kind of thing, So we've been lucky in that respect. So it's not because they wanted to be change professionals, experts in change, but it just kind of is a byproduct of what we went through and how we grew. We call it the merger. We merged fire and EMS together suddenly, and also went to a combination system kind of suddenly as well. And everybody was mad about something. So there was lots of change and lots of stuff, and we just had to get through it. And in the process, they became very adapted to change. So we're lucky in that respect.
So when you think about today in the fire service, when you think about fire dynamics, you think about Madrikowski, think about Kerber, and you think about Buchanan. But that really wasn't your goal, was it, to be involved in fire dynamics from the get-go? You just kind of happened into it?
It was just, I was just sitting next to Dan at a meeting a couple times. I always had, my thing was never, I didn't really get into tactics. I always thought tactics was better left to the big city guys. You know what I mean? That's FDNY guys. They talk about tactics and stuff in Chicago and all those guys. Don't let them do that. But, I was working with the ISFSI. I guess I was president at the time, maybe, or might've been the legislative guy or something. And I would be sitting next to Madrikowski at a meeting. I remember distinctly being at Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, sitting in a meeting, and we're just sitting next to each other talking about who knows what. And he slides his laptop over on a break and goes, "Look at this." And he was showing me the ventilation research that they were just starting up in New York. I'm trying to think what the island. Anyway, but they were just starting Governor's Island. They just started messing with that. And he was showing me some of the early data and talking about exterior streams and all this kind of thing. And I always tease him. I'm like one of the first guys he probably pissed off in the process of that, because I was like, "Hell no, are you crazy? You can't do that. That's not something you can do. That's not right." So, and I would give him a hard time about it. Like, you're crazy, Dan. You're no. And I would go back and tell the chief, this is what Dan said. At first we'd kind of laugh about it. Ha ha ha. That's silly. And then he would more meetings and more research and more data. And I'm looking at it going, this might be something, and then it got to be where the chief would say, well, what did Dan say this time? And after enough discussions like that, we finally the chief, Crosby said, don't you think we should do something about this? Shouldn't we, if we know what we know now based on this data, even though there's plenty of research to be done, we know enough now that we should at least be looking at how we operate.
Well, that's pretty forward thinking, really.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess we can. I'm not sure how, and I just started riding around. So I'm gonna go catch a couple fires. So I would just wait to, give it a minute, and somebody dispatched something, and sure enough, we ran a couple right together. And I remember distinctly thinking how hard it was not to think of the old way, and watching how our guys worked. They did exactly what I would do, and we went to the front door and we made our lap. We always make your size up lap. We were at least doing that well. And but we didn't look at anything. We just ran around the building. It was like, well, nice lap, good PT, let's go fight fire. They didn't look at anything really tactically that influenced their decision. So that kind of started the discussion. And then we always go in the front door. But, well, that's just because we always do. We didn't really have like a, particular reason why. This is what we've always been doing. So that started some kicking around, and so we basically said, well, what if you took all the chess pieces off the board and you put them back on based on what we know now, would you put them back different? And that's how that acronym came to be. We're doing that. We were literally doing that. Okay, let's just start it from scratch. And what would we do first? Well, we can't get past size up because you got to know what's going on. And we wrote an S on the board.
Right.
Me and a guy named Jason Burrow, we were sitting in the whiteboard, just kicking it around in my office. I said, well, you got to do this. What's next? Well, where's the fire at? We got to locate the fire. And then we just got lucky. It spelled something. We didn't set out to make an acronym by any stretch. We just go, hey, look, it spells something. That's handy.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to start with the acronym kick-ass. How do we make that fit?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just stroke of luck. And then we debated about everybody talks about the R, how come the R is not first? But sometimes it is. It just depends on what's going on, right? But first thing you got to do is size up to understand.
Absolutely.
So you just can't, the S got to happen first. I'm sorry, but you got to size up to understand what's going on. So then it might be second, or it might be, somewhere after the water. It just depends, but it's going to happen. We're going to always search. It's not like we're not going to search a building. Of course we're going to search it. So, we rolled that out to the field, and they were obviously resistant at first, and hell, some still are, So you don't always get everybody, but I think we operate now in a way that is much, I would say safer. I would say more thoughtful about the risk. It's never going to be safe. That's just kind of the way it goes. But I look at firefighting from almost a war fighting perspective. It's kind of the way I look at it. Like, why would I want to use hand-to-hand combat and go fight with a knife when I can have the sniper take him out from 1,000 yards? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why not do that? I'm going to take the most aggressive, effective way to kill the enemy as soon as possible. So if I need to get in a knife fight, I will. But I'd rather let the sniper do it from up in a tree. It's bringing that same mindset to firefighting, I guess.
Now, the C in Slice RS probably caused no confusion and no controversy whatsoever, did it?
Cool from a safe location.
Cool from a safe location, which could only possibly mean no more interior firefighting. You fight completely from the outside and all that fun stuff, right?
That was my way of saying, hey, dummy, you might not want to run up underneath the fire like that. You might want to put some water on it.
Exactly.
But, that was our politically correct way of saying it, I guess. But just trying to get them to open the line sooner. I was taught that you crawl in there and roll around on the where the origin of the fire is first before you open your line. That's how we were programmed.
Oh yes.
And we had to break that programming.
Yep.
So that's what it took. We get a lot of the VEIS thing, the vent inter isolate. Everybody gets upset about the I, which I still call it VES too, because I'm old and that's what we do. But that was kind of a byproduct of noticing how young firefighters would act when confronted with the victim. So we would tell them, we're going to break the window, check the floor, enter the room, go immediately across, shut the door, now search the room and get out. That was great until you actually put a victim in there, and they hit that, and it's like, yelling squirrel. They just completely forget the door part, and start working with the victim, which I understand that, but you have to understand the fire dynamics at play. You need to control that flow path pretty quick. So
yeah, you're not giving the victim the best chance he or she's going to have when you leave that door open.
It's just a matter of, I think people get a little upset about acronyms overall anyway. They're like, we're not an acronym fire department. I'm like, dude, if I'm under stress, I'll take all the help I can get. I don't care if it's an acronym or a cheat sheet or, somebody whispering in my ear, whatever. I'll take all the help I can get. If an acronym helps you, okay, great. And we were trying to beat a lot of this old way of doing things. We had a lot of habits to overcome that having that acronym initially helped, because it helped you concentrate on something to break that old train of thought, to get a new train of thought. Not that different. It's just, we're just considering a few things differently than we might have before.
Right.
Is the front door the right place? I don't know. Is it? I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Just depends on the condition. So
yeah, too many times there's a default setting of you pull the engine right in front of the burning building instead of pulling past. You pull the hand line off and go straight to the front door without even doing a size up, and you just go in and you don't open up that nozzle until you can barely take it anymore.
Right.
The firefighters now, and I've said this, we've been in a firefighter renaissance where a firefighter might have been considered sort of I don't know the right words, and I apologize if I say it wrong, but maybe not as smart. But that's not the case anymore. Firefighters now, not only fighting fire and knowing about flow path and fire dynamics and hydraulics, but also we got to know hazmat, confined space, water rescue, on and on and on, rope rescue. So today's firefighter is not, they pretty much have to be a much smarter firefighter than the days of old. Would you not agree?
No, it's incredibly technical, man. We say it's a blue collar job, and it is. It's dirty, and it's tough and physical and all that. But it's really complex. I mean, to understand all the disciplines appropriately, and I don't think you could be an expert at all the things. If you're not on the tech rescue team and training daily on that stuff, the knots. Like I used to know how to do all these complex rigging and all this stuff. Don't ask me to do it now, man, because I don't do it every day. I can tell you what our budget in, fuel is, but I can't help you with that knot. So it's just, it's complex. You got hazmat guys, you got tech rescue guys, you got, everybody's a firefighter. And you got to be a pretty decent EMT, you got to be able to take care of people, but it's really complicated. And I think we may maybe cut ourselves a little short, in that, in the way we kind of carry ourselves. That this is some scientific stuff we do.
Yes. And in a short time, we're given seconds to make life-saving decisions across the spectrum of all the things we've talked about: the ropes, confined space, fire, EMS, all that.
Yeah, I love talking about that. We can solve the world's most complex problems with high risk, time compressed, worst case scenario, and get it right. And that I bet the corporate world is pretty baffled by that. Like, imagine if they could bottle that up.
Yeah.
But it's just understanding priority-based decision making. We understand what our priorities are, and we can adapt. We don't need a step-by-step guide to do that. We can wing it. We're creative as heck. When you get us where we have to solve a problem in a hurry, we'll come up with all kinds of ideas and be able to apply them in an effective way. That's pretty dang remarkable.
I think so. Absolutely. Now, you had mentioned earlier that you were the former president of the ISFSI. Anybody listens to my podcast, they know I love the ISFSI. I'm a proud member, proud instructor. Why don't you tell me how you got involved with the ISFSI and moved up the ranks like you did?
Yeah. Well, Vicki Pritchett got me in the ISFSI. I was on the board of the VCOS, the Volunteer Combination Officer section of the IFC. And I'd been on there for a little while and was doing a lot of work with them. And having fun. We were doing a lot of cool stuff, right? Doing a lot of good things. And I was at a conference somewhere and just happened to walk past Vicki, and she was manning a booth by herself at the whatever thing we were at. And she goes, "Hey, have you thought about helping out the ISFSI?" And I'm like, "Well, I actually, when I got assigned to training, I joined it. And the first thing I got from them was the letter saying they were shutting it down. I was like, what the heck? You know, it was right when all things they had their little dark time, you know?
Yes, the dark
and,
time.
I was like, okay, wow, that was crazy. But Vicky talked to me and she goes, you know, we really need some help. And we need a strong board of directors. We need guys that can come in and pick up the ball and know what to do and get things happen. And she goes, why don't you get on the board? You know, I'm like, well, I have to run. She goes, just put your name down. We'll get you on we'll make it happen. Like, okay. So they had an election, but I guess, you know, it really wasn't that much going on right then. And there was Tim Siddleback was the president, Shane Ray was the vice president, and Vicky was running the show from an administrative standpoint. And they were running it out of the office they had for their volunteer fire department in Tennessee. It used to be in Virginia. And, you know, so I just showed up and started helping out. You know, well, what can we do to help? And where do we pick up what's going on? And you know, it was financially challenging and membership was down and didn't have a lot of resources. And we had to figure out what everything went, you know, because there was a lot of stuff. The organization owned FDIC, for Pete's sake. You know, I mean, it was a massive monster organization. And we just started to slowly rebuild it. And, you know, just becoming president, it was just really it wasn't like we were running for stuff. It was more like, who's the right guy to step in this particular moment. I had a good relationship with fire engineer and FDIC. We were all, you know, friends. Had been working there as an instructor for a long time. And that made a lot of sense with where we were just for me to do that. So I ended up being the president for 2 terms, I think it was. And then as we went, you know, actually, funny story, Lee Hubbard, the way I was talking to her ex-husband one day, and I said, we were just, you know, I just knew them socially, right? I said, how's Lee? And, you know, he said, oh, she's good. I said, what does she do exactly? And he said, oh, she's in association management. I said, really? Sit down. Come have a seat. Have I got a deal for you? You know, because we were looking for some help to, you know, run the business side of the association. And so, yeah, that's how we got on board, was just through a friend of a friend. And they made the mistake of telling me what she did for a living. And so she's been there ever since, doing a great job.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, the stars, the guys like Steve Pegram and Devin and these guys that came along that I still talk to Steve, you know, pretty regular. If I'm going to use the phone a friend, Steve's going to be one of my first phone calls. To this day, we still compare notes about stuff. And we just, and now to look at what the society is doing now, it is amazing. It is, I mean, the board and the whole association, I'm just sitting back, you know, just happy as I can be watching this thing grow like gangbusters and really get back to what it was intended to do, which is to provide resources to instructors, man. That's really it. You know, when you first get assigned at training and you go, oh Lord, what did I do? You got somebody you can reach out to figure out, you know, the ins and outs of this. And even company officers, I would encourage to look at it, because everybody's really an instructor. If you're not training as a company officer, we need to have a talk about that problem. But
plus, it's not just reaching out to fellow instructors. The ISFSI is chock full of heavy hitters. You know, you Forrest Reeder, Peter Van Dorp, Seth Barker. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Some great instructors that you're not just getting help from some guy down the street. You're getting some guy that, you know, ran Chicago's training center, or, you know, Algonquin, whatever. So there's a lot of approachable and easily to talk to heavy hitters in the society. That's
how everybody came up. You know, we're only repaying the favor, right? You know, so when I was a young instructor and we were trying to figure out what the heck is going on with our training program, you know, we got a lot of our training program is basically a little bit from this place and a little bit from that place and a little bit from this guy and that guy. You know, I mean, we were building it off of pieces, and a lot of it came from those discussions. Was talking to, Seth Dale was an instructor in Illinois, that was trying to do something real similar to what we were trying to do. And we would compare notes, and we would, trade, hey, do this, do that. We were talking all the time because of those relationships through that, instructor networking and stuff. So it's invaluable, man. People used to ask me when I was president, what do I get for my membership dues? I'm like, well, it's more like, what are you going to get to do for your membership dues? It's, you're not buying anything. You're making a donation to help with the cause is what it really is, because we need funds to operate the thing. And it gives you the opportunity to contribute. You want to teach somewhere outside of your fire department. That's probably where you want to start, is with the ISFSI, because they're going to give you the access to the people who do that. Mm-hmm. You want to be around those people that teach at a regional or national level. Well, that's where they're going to be. So you can get in there and pick their brain about how to do stuff. And, it's pretty soon somebody asks, I'm looking for an instructor for this. And they go, hey, you ought to call that guy in, East Wing, West Virginia or whatever. I've been talking to that guy, and he's sharp. He's an upcoming guy. That's kind of what I look for, is who are the instructors that are, we sit back and watch quietly, mm-hmm. but you see them, you can see them bubbling up. Like, oh, here comes one. Here comes the guy. Let's see what he's doing. And you'll watch them. They'll catch them, kind of regional shows, like maybe the State Chiefs Conference or something like that. They'll pick up something local, and then that'll go well. And then the next, they'll catch something regional, or they'll catch one of the kind of ground level shows that they do, that they're doing. We're seeing a lot of that now, where they're doing a lot of more decentralized type of conferences. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what to call them yet, but and then eventually you get up to the big dance. But it's usually, and you're getting mentored the whole time. Like, what's it like to teach in a big room? There's a lot of stuff you probably won't know if you've never had the exposure to somebody who's done it. As far as the tips and tricks of microphones, projectors, what to tell a venue or somebody that's asked you to come teach, what to communicate to them, what your needs are. And, there's just so much to it. And that the ISFSI is where you're going to get that kind of access. And if you just want to sit and teach in the back room of your fire department, that's cool. Okay.
But I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine doing that and not wanting to do more. Mm-hmm. I talked to you a little bit before we start recording, but there you go society. I've got something similar. I've got my basement fire class I'm studying.
They gave me this thing probably 10 years ago. I'm still carrying it around.
I thought they took that away from you when they kicked you out as president. Is that not a thing?
I don't know. I mean, it's got my name on it. So until they get a guy named Eddie again, I get to keep it.
So Van Dorp's got one that says PVD on it. Yeah. He's good to go. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I took this class with Kevin Milan and Matt Hopple. Sorry, Matt Hopple. Uh-huh. And they blew me out of the water. Great instructors. And that's when I was like, I want to be to that level. I want to be that good someday. So how do I do that? You join the society. And then of course I got to see Brad French teach. And if you're not motivated after listening to Brad talk, then you're never going to get motivated about the fire service. Right. So those things just made me want to be part of the society. And I'm blessed that I get to go around the country, teach for them, and work with, D'Agostino, work with Hubbard, Pedroza, Brian Cates, all these guys I get to work with, and I'm selfish as I can be. I'm always trying to take notes and learn, hey, I like how they do that, pick their brain a little bit. And I think that's another great aspect of the society.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd never teach a class where I don't want something, for at least watching the presenter. Whether I'm teaching with them, team teaching or something, or just sitting in the classroom and watching, mm-hmm. you'll learn something every time. If you're not paying attention, mm-hmm. you're going to always get something. And the society guys, that's one of the things I think is so cool, is particularly with, if you get a chance to hang out afterwards, you'll learn more, after 5 o'clock than you will beforehand sometimes.
Oh man.
Just with the chats.
So on my last podcast, I was talking to Chief Van Dorp, and I was telling him we were all in Denver kicking off that basement fire class. And at one point after the class was over, we went to this pizza place, and they're all just chatting. We're all on different tables talking. And then all of a sudden, Tony Carroll, the TC, the BC from DC, mm-hmm. was chatting with Chief Van Dorp, and they were going back and forth about ventilation. And then everybody else started getting real quiet and just started listening to him. And then I saw Brad French just kind of like this, like listening. I'm listening. Gilbert Pedroza. We're like, people pay a lot of money to hear this kind of stuff from this caliber of firefighter. And it was one of the neatest things I've ever done. And I said in my last podcast, I was just praying they wouldn't ask me my opinion. You got, DC and you got Chicago talking about, ventilation and get firefighters off the roof and I was like, man, it was more learning done after the class, maybe than was in the class. It was great.
Right. My best memories of the fire service are probably from those opportunities where you're sitting around shooting the breeze and, after some event and just the chatter that happens, you learn so much. I would say it's a fair statement to say I learned more after class than I ever did during it, just from hanging out with these guys,
Yep.
So it's awesome.
I got to talk about your I don't want to call it a hobby. I feel that's kind of diminishing, but something that you do that you got great passion for that has nothing to do with the fire service. You want to tell me what that is?
Yeah. Music business, man.
There you go.
So when I was a volunteer, I was a full-time musician.
Okay.
And I was like a volunteer firefighter. And then when I switched over, I became a full-time firefighter and a part-time musician. So I've always done that. It's always been my family. You can't be in my family unless you play. So we'll kick you right out unless you
play drums, right?
Yeah, I play drums and been doing it my whole life. And right now I'm playing for a country artist named Tony Jackson.
Yes.
So if you haven't heard of Tony, go TonyJacksonMusic.com. And everything you need to know is there.
Absolutely. And great voice, great band.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. It's a lot. I'm always amazed the correlations between the fire service and the music business and what things are the same and what things are different. It's pretty amusing. When you're playing at that level, we're playing some pretty big stuff. We'll play some, fairly, I'd say, big shows from time to time. And so you're dealing with a lot of heavy hitters and kind of like we were just talking about instructors, you're dealing with that. And it's interesting. There is an assumption that you can play. Like if you're hanging around Nashville or, in that environment, we're just going to assume you can play. It doesn't like you wouldn't be here otherwise. What I mean? It's like, if you're going to be in the room, of course you can play. You play great. That's not part of the discussion. It's really more about personalities and getting along on a bus. That's the hard part. Of course you can play. So it's interesting in the fire service that's not always the same standard. Like isn't it funny that we'll put all kinds of effort into getting ready to play. Like we're going out this weekend for a show, outdoor festival show. So over the couple days before, I'll play it through the show. I've got the ability here at the house and with technology and stuff, I can literally just play through the show. All the muscle, just do it. Muscle memory stuff. Mm-hmm. And always do that to knock the dust off to make sure that when I am up there, I don't have to think about it. I want to be thinking about the crowd and having a good time. I'm not worried about what the heck I'm doing. And, we put a lot of effort into it. I wonder if everybody does that before the next shift. Are you putting that mental effort in to make sure you're physically ready, that you're hydrated? You can't cramp up in there. We don't get mistakes. You don't get to have a mistake. You might slip or break something or whatever, but just breaking a song is unacceptable. So, you've got to know your stuff and be prepared and be physically and mentally ready to do it. Head in the game completely. And I feel like that should be the same approach to a shift on the fire department, that you would be really considering how well you're hydrated. Are you stretched out good? Are you physically ready? Did you eat right? Before you go in for your 24, that seems to me to be that would be the mindset we would expect looking at it from the music side of the house.
You kind of just blew my mind on that one. Cause I gotta be honest with you. When I was on shift, I probably didn't think the shift started till about an hour into it, till I've had my coffee and,
right.
But the second I walked through that door, I should have been more prepared. That's actually really good. Now, how did you get involved with playing it with the band you're playing with now? Was Tony Jackson, the Tony Jackson band? And how often do you get to travel to do that?
Well, it's I got involved. This more who you know. It's that's kind of how that business works. It's a lot of who you know. You play with somebody before, and then they get it. Then they get a gig, and then they go out. I like playing with that guy, so I'm gonna call that guy. It's not like you audition for stuff like you would might think. They do that. They do have auditions, but I'd almost be scared of a gig like that. You know what I mean? It's like you want to be around people that you like hanging out with, because that's most of what you're doing.
Right.
And so, Tony was helping manage a band I was in before called Rosie Soul. We played at the FDIC a couple times. So he was managing that, and then he got this. And I didn't know he could sing country. I'd only ever heard him sing rock. He was a rock singer before. Band called Half Brother Sid. If you're a rock fan, you look them up. But they were out touring and stuff. And then he just cut this tribute song for George Jones when George Jones passed away. He did a tribute for the Grand Tour. Actually, some guys in my other band were the guys playing on that video. And that thing just took off, man. And when I heard him open his mouth to sing country, I literally about fell out of my chair. Like, I had no idea that that's what you sound like when you do. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Yes.
And it just took off. And I told him then, I said, well, when you need a guy, holla. And sure enough, he eventually did. And funny story, now I'm tour managing him too, right? So I have 2 jobs with him. And it's funny, people in that business think the tour management stuff we do is rocket science. They're like, how do you do all this? How do you so organized and all that? I'm like, it's an IEP, man. I'm just using fire department stuff over here. I'm just writing an IEP. Yeah. So but they're like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, that's just an IEP. It's not a big deal. But that's how we roll over in the fire department.
So after you do a gig, you do a debrief and all that.
Well, we do kind of like we usually have cameras rolling all the time. That's something else that I would say the fire department is a little bit. It's interesting to how we do things in the fire department versus the music business. Is, we'll sit and watch a tape or a video recording. I say tape. I'm old. We watch the recording of the show, and I like to put a GoPro right on my kit so I can just go back and watch it, the next day and see what worked well. Was there anything I could have done better? Really kind of pick it apart and nitpick to find a way to improve it. I mean, just even the song I played 1,000 times, maybe there's something I haven't thought of yet to improve it. And we don't have that attitude on our after action stuff sometimes in the fire department. You know what I mean? It's like you would think they'd want cameras on everything, be studying and watching the repeat, watch the replay and all that stuff. But you don't really get that warm and fuzzy feeling about that sometimes when you debrief a fire. But I think people are concerned they're going to be told they did something wrong or could have done something better, when in fact, I think that's the thing you should be hungry for, are the things that you could do better or improve on. I want to know that so I can do better next time. I'm not good. I don't want you to, not give me that feedback. I want the feedback. Tell me. And so I think that's an interesting parallel to watch with those 2 things too.
Well, on that subject right there, I have a guy that I work with named Aaron, and he's the lowest rank you can be, right? Super passionate about the job. He makes other people passionate about the job. But one of the things he does that I really love is he takes a camera into every fire, and then after, like the next day, he'll play it back for his company, and he'll say, okay, now you see here, this is what we did. And he's like next level, this guy. And what's neat is that I like that he's technically the lowest ranking on the truck, but he motivates everybody on his company to be better. And he's not afraid to fail in front of them or anything like that. But I always thought that was neat that he records every fire, and then they break it down as a company. And I think he even uses radio traffic too. He'll get radio traffic from the alarm room and say, okay, well, here's what this was, here's what that was. And I think if just half the guys had a third of his passion, it would be a whole different situation. So that's great. Now, with all your teaching and your job and playing with your band, I mean, how often are you actually home? And how do you do all that? How did I schedule this podcast with you?
COVID gave a nice break. We were busy as all get out before the lockdown came. We had a lot of momentum going. We was doing the Opry on a pretty regular basis. They just went back recently. And it was busy. So I have a very understanding boss, and I'm a technology guy. I understand how to use technology. There's nothing I can't do remote. I can do my complete entire job other than go hang out with the guys. I can't do that.
All right.
But I can do all the business side of the house from anywhere. I actually once did a budget meeting with our local government from a tour bus. We're just rolling down the road, and we're only doing a budget presentation, over the Zoom thing. So I think that's the main thing. I burn leave when I have to. If it's an opportunity to work remote, like it's a travel day where we're just sitting all day, might as well work. I can do that anywhere. And just use leave. And I've been in the fire department so long, I get a lot of leave, oftentimes in a use it or lose it kind of situation. So, or if I didn't do this much, so it actually works out. I've been very lucky, and also being able to retire helps. So,
yeah.
There's that. If that was what I was kind of eyeballing when the lockdown came. I was like, you watch your leave balance and what you can do, and can you still do the other job well? And if I ever got to where I thought I couldn't do one or the other well, then you got to pick one, right? And then, and our bench is strong. I always say that about our fire department. But I'm just in the damn way at this point. The guys are so good that are working for us that it's amazing. I'm really they're just waiting on me to get out of the way. So that'll happen at some point, but the COVID thing slowed us down a little bit. So we're rebuilding momentum, but I just got a really cool boss, and the ability to use technology and access everything as I need to. That's the magic of the internet.
That's great. It seems like most of us, as we get older, we kind of slow down. It seems like you're just picking up more speed.
Man, it's weird. I've had I had a buddy of mine. He goes, "How in the heck did you get into all this?" Because I remember I was busting my tail trying to get a job in the fire department. I took all the tests. It was not easy. I had to really work at it. And then now looking back on it, I would say those jobs I didn't get, thank God, right? Because I would have not been in the position or place that gave me the opportunity to run and have the leadership there that would let you run. It's just right place, right time. I don't know, but I'm a firm believer in attitude. I do a whole thing on attitude, and I guess some people will call it manifestation. I don't know if I'm that fuzzy about it, but I think what you set your intention to do can be done. And my mom taught me that. My dad, having a mom that believed she could do anything, and a dad who's a Marine who could make it happen. And you put those two things together, and cool things happen, right?
Things get done, right?
Yeah. So if I think understanding, is there a need? I don't write a lot. I write in spurts. If something hits me, I won't write unless I got something to say. Kind of thing. I'll be quiet for a couple of years, probably. I've been quiet for a while now, just because I don't really have anything to say. There's lots of people talking, and everybody's doing a great job. I got nothing to add. Everybody's doing good. So I'll just, go about my business and do my thing. And but every now and then something will come along. It might be fire dynamics, or it might be, something where I think there's something that needs to be said that's not being said, and then I'll get out there and do it. But I would encourage. Rick Lasky is a big mentor of mine. Rick is the reason I'm doing any of this stuff from the fire department perspective, because we brought him out to teach a class, way back like 98 or 7 or something like that, a long time ago. And he convinced me that what we were doing was unique and I should write about it. And my first thought was, who the heck am I to write anything about anything? Nobody cares what I'm doing out here in the woods. Nobody cares about this. But I thought he would be, put him back on the airplane, he'll go on, he'll forget about it, But sure enough, he called me back a couple of weeks later and goes, I didn't see anything from you yet. I want you to write something. And he even had it set up so that, he said, send me the thing and I'll look at it. And I'll give you some feedback on it. And then when you send it in, I'm gonna call ahead and tell them it's coming. And that's how my first article got published, And
that's not a bad way to get your first article published with Chief Lasky behind you.
Lasky helping you, yeah, right. But I think the big lesson in that is, he plucked some kid out of the woods and kind of pushed him into the, ring to go, hey, go do something, man. You got something to say, go in there. And I was kind of skeptical who would care what I had to say, who am I to say something? But he said, no, go do it. And that was the best gift anybody could ever give you, And he's also on my first phone of friends. He's he's one of my first guys I'm gonna call when I have a problem too, to this day. And I think officers should appreciate that. You know, when you're leading somebody like that, sometimes the best thing you can do for them is just give them an opportunity. It might just be make an introduction to somebody, you know, connect them. The best thing you can do is get out of your fire department. I always tell people that. Get out of your fire department, go look and see what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
Because, you know, you're gonna be surprised. The first time I went to FDIC, I didn't even know what it was. I was like, where are we going? I was, you know, sitting on a plane going to Indianapolis, or I think it was the first year it was in Indy. And I was like, what are we going to, man? Do they have beer? You know? And then when I got there, I was like, what in the heck is it? How is it possible? I didn't know this existed, you know? And I remember thinking there were some fire departments that were so far ahead of us. I was like, my God, it's just, we're not even on the same planet with these people. And then I saw other fire departments where, well, at least we ain't got it that bad, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, you realize you're in the middle, you know, somewhere. And that was the best, just giving somebody an opportunity to introduce them to something, set them up with the class, anything you can do to open the door for somebody. I think those are sometimes the greatest gifts you can give them. You know, it's the leadership stuff and the coaching and all that. All those are primary and basic skills, but sometimes it's just a little nod or a little push, and that you can really set somebody on a new path. It's pretty cool.
And with the things that you've done since then, you've obviously helped people below you to reach those career pinnacles as well through everything that you've done, you know. So I think that's the key too. If somebody's going to,
thank you. You open some doors, you know, and some will walk through it and some won't. That's another thing to point out. Some people will step right on in there and get to it, and other people will just not. They'll just shy away from it. That's fine. Some people are kind of, you know, programmed for that sort of work. I'm an introverted type of guy. I'm just happy if I can just sit and be quiet, but I can hit the gas and go, you know, get in front of a classroom or, you know, speak in a public way. Some people don't want to do that. You know, they want to work behind the scenes and stuff, which I appreciate. So, you know, all you can do is give them the opportunity, and some will take it, and some won't.
Well, Chief, I tell you what, I'm going to wrap up right now. If you don't mind, just staying on there 1 second. But I wanted to thank you for coming on my podcast. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking at your stuff here. There's about 3 million things I couldn't squeeze in. You've done a lot for the fire service. And I'd love to have you back sometime and we could touch on a lot of this stuff. I could have picked your brain probably all day just on the ISFSI stuff. But
we should do that. We should do something. Get some of the old guys together. Shoot the breeze on here.
You'll be my point of contact for that.
All right. We can hook it up.
Thanks a lot, Chief, and appreciate your time.